Hey guys, today we're doing a little blind tasting of Barossa red blends after our trip to Melbourne last week. Today's Thursday. 7 days ago we were on the road to Melbourne where we picked up a trophy. You see in front of us, best organic and or biodynamic wine at the Melbourne Royal Wine Show, with our Gnarlenfrey Red 1, which is a blend of Grenache, Mourvedre and Shiraz. So we thought it'd be cool to blind taste and benchmark a few examples of red blends. So you can see the spread in front of us. We've got wines from Z Wines, Torbreck, Two Hands, Turkey Flat, Kalleske. We've got our wines in the mix, of course, Henschke, Hentley Farm and Tinsmith. So yeah, we'll taste them, we'll write notes. We do not know the order of the glasses, so we are blind we know what the wines are, of course, but we're blind tasting. Well, what do we expect from a Barossa red blend?
I think a good balance between tannin and fruit weight. I suppose it would be good to see each variety in the blend, but not overpowering.
I think balance is a good one.
I think if they all kind of have a synergistic effect, if they all work together.
Well, I think overall we can expect a bit of generosity, being Grenache, juicy and high alcohol, Shiraz being big and gutsy, Mourvedre being spicy. There should be a lot going on in the glass. But yeah, the best wines will be balanced, they'll be elegant. Hopefully we'll see smart winemaking where there's nothing that is overpowering those flavors, like excessive oak or anything like that. I like to see the varietals, I like to see the region. Let's get going. We've got 10 wines. I'll start with number 1. Yeah, they are from different vintages, as I said, so focusing on the color too much is probably wrong, because they might just have variation based on the age of the wine. It'll be very much a first impression sort of thing, and I'll personally score the wines.
It's quite spice driven.
It's got a very dark character, perhaps a little tankiness or freshness about it, but yeah, very primary. I think the spice that we see actually comes from the fruit. There's not a lot of wine making to this, which is great. I love it. It's crunchy, it's got good structure.
Really fine tannin.
Yeah, I was going to say almost like sandy. It's good. It's definitely a more restrained spice and structure driven style. I'm a very strict judge when it comes to wine, but I gave this wine a 93 points.
Wow.
Which is it will be a silver. This is wine number 2 now that we're doing. Similar color, if that means anything.
Immediately the woody oak comes through. Very lifted.
Driven by the cellar flavors of the oak, of the aging, of the developed characters in the wine rather than primary. Fairly dusty as well on the nose.
But has that Barossan generosity, richness, without the alcohol coming through too much. Which is always good. Have that fruit weight.
Yeah, I find it juicy. It's got a good meat palate.
Wow.
Perhaps it gets a little bit tougher towards the end. Slightly astringent finish. Perhaps, a couple of years in the bottle would fix that. I'll give it a bronze, 85 points. Could be a little bit more generous with this. Wine number 3, much richer nose. Feels sweeter on the nose already. And I'm not talking obviously sugar sweetness, more fruit sweetness. That makes sense. There's a riper quality about this.
I find that the alcohol is quite lifting. The alcohol is lifting a lot of the aromas.
I think the,
warm. Still balanced, maybe.
the alcohol perhaps helps with a little bit of that glycerol fullness, roundness to the palate. A touch out of balance, but just a touch. Overall, I still find it a balanced wine. Completely different style from the first two are more similar in style than this. This I would say is more classic Barossa. Super generous, super juicy. Good wine.
They're very dark fruits.
Yeah, a bit of that brooding character, which is always nice. Perhaps a touch more of that herbaceous spice would have been nice to complement all of this. But yeah, I'm tossing up between a very high bronze and a silver medal, so 89, 90 points on this. I'll give it 90. Number 4. This is so much darker. This is black.
It has a dense aroma.
Yeah. Inky, yeah, black everything, black fruit, black spice, like that peppery.
Not as lifted though as the previous 3.
No, not at all. If anything, this I would call this a very shy, very closed nose. I want to say the nose is almost a little bit manipulated or fake.
A lot of tannin. Makes me think maybe a
Wow.
Shiraz or Mataro dominant.
Wow. This like, that's a lot of structure. I want to be as objective and honest as possible. It is definitely not my style. To me, it's quite disappointing to see a blend done in this style because it's so polarizing. I guess this would please the old school Barossa Shiraz drinker, but blends, in my opinion, should be a little bit more lifted and elegant and displaying more of a variety of characters, whereas this is very monotone, dark, brooding, spiced, concentrated, tannic. The tannins are insane on this wine. Yeah, I'm not trying to be nice for the camera, so I will give this probably 82 points. I think it misses the mark completely when it comes to blends. Number 5, we're going back to a slightly lighter color and more on the purple sort of spectrum, so back to something either younger or made with less oak or less time in oak. I really like the nose of this. It's got spice, a bit of herbal, green, savory quality.
Definitely get the fruit weight again with this. And a sweetness, maybe more of a Grenache influence.
I really like this.
Yeah.
I love the spice. The fruit is juicy, crunchy, more red fruit compared to the previous one, of course, that was black. I can see Grenache, I can see the feminine, perfumed, lifted quality of Grenache. Very interesting. It's probably my favorite wine so far. Let's be generous. I was gonna go 94. I'll give it 95 gold. Wine number 6. There's still that dusty, spicy quality, but I see a little bit of fruit coming through. Nice spectrum. The fruit sort of sits in between the crunchy red and the darker.
Very fresh. But like a lot of fruit.
Yep. It's a good wine. I would drink this wine happily. Give this an 89. Just misses out on a silver. No, let's go 90. Let's go 90.
I know, just quickly, when we're not really going back and tasting, but I want to keep trying this wine.
Yeah.
Just to keep discovering what's happening. It's actually quite complex and interesting.
And we haven't touched on length on many of them, or any of them, but this last one has a presence, not perhaps flavor, but it just sits on your tongue for a long time in terms of tannins, and the overall impression of the wine is quite lingering. So it's a good wine. Yeah. But I've got wine number 7 in my hand. I see a little bit more concentration in the color.
We're back as well with the density of Barossa, almost purple fruit, Shirazi coming through. Get a bit of sweet and sour.
Yeah, you're right. This is a great example of what we just said. This has got the same exact acidity as the previous one, the previous one being an overall leaner, well, crunchier style, pulls it off. Whereas this one here, because it's so rich and generous, when you see that acid line that is quite pokey, it really sticks out. I find the oak a touch too present. It sort of takes a little bit away from the varietal character, but I do see, that more Shirazi sort of fruit quality, slightly more purple, slightly darker, slightly riper. I do see a softness that is either something earlier picked, or maybe Grenache could give that. There are layers to this wine. It's a good wine.
Yeah, that's a good word for layered.
So I'll give this 90. I'll go back to the previous one to give it a 91, because the previous one is better. Wine number 8.
First thing I smelled was the dustiness, and oak. But now I'm getting still a Barossa density of fruit and almost balsamic-y.
Yeah, I do get
I'm
that.
not sure.
Good nose, good intensity, a little bit of wood again, maybe a little bit too much. Yeah, the palate is very tannic, very, very chunky. If this makes any sense, the fruit is all packed towards the front of the palate, and then the acidity and the tannins really come in, and it finishes strong on structure. It's not quite together. It's quite disjointed, quite chunky, and I will penalize this wine for that. It's not if I had that wine on the table, I would drink it. If I was to choose to drink a wine, I would never pick that. And if I had multiple wines in front of me, like in this case, I would never go back to that glass. It's just not me. I'll give it 82 points again. It doesn't score a medal. Number 9's got a great color and less intensity to the color compared to the previous.
It's quite refreshing after such a rich wine.
Perhaps a little bit shy, but you're right. We come from such an intense wine that it's hard to know. I don't smell heaps. It could be a little bit more intense, but I love what I smell.
Fine tannin. No oak doesn't come through.
I get 0 oak. I love the palate.
Wow.
I find it fresh and juicy and crunchy and just sweet enough, but not sweet to make it boring or like heavy. Primary, but with a lot of that precision that I like to see in a blend, where you...
Yeah. I think, like we talked about, we're looking for balance, and this to me personally has all the characters that you want, and it's balanced. Perhaps, like you said, a bit shy on the nose.
Yeah, good wine, but I'll give these also a 95. 96. I think this might be my favorite. Last wine. Back to the dark color, concentration.
Smoky.
There's the toast, there's smokiness, the dust, the baking spices,
Ripe. Very
oak-driven nose. I'm trying to put aside my, love for blends that are less oak-driven and more floral and fruity and varietal driven. But even if I try hard to do that, I really can't enjoy a nose that is so dominated by the oak. It's just a little bit monotone, oak dominated. And that sort of a stewed fruit character as well on the nose is a bit much.
I get the sweet and sour thing again, where first all the fruit hits you, and then all of a sudden the acid comes through. So maybe a bit disjointed.
I think overall, I can't say this is a terrible wine at all.
No.
I think it's a good wine. Stylistically, it doesn't hit the spot for me at all. And a wine like this just, to me, is more of a signature style from a winery rather than a varietal or a vintage that is highlighted in the glass. But yeah, I mean, there's a market for wines like this. It's a good wine. There's nothing terrible about it. Give it 85. I think my scores are a little bit all over the place in terms of I've given the same score to two wines that are definitely not the same if I was to go back to them, but happy with that. It's a good exercise. We've got a few gold medals. We'll find out what each wine is. Yeah, overall I think, so to conclusions, it seems like out of 10 wines, and of course there's hundreds of examples around, it's very much only two styles, one being the darker, slightly oakier, slightly more Shiraz-like style, and one being the newer, more modern, more contemporary, crunchy, red-fruited, lifted.
Yeah, allowing Grenache to show.
Yeah, but there's definitely some tradition that plays a role in this as well, and there's definitely some winery sort of signature character that comes through in some of them. Our wines did well. It's obviously going to be interesting for Liv and I to go back and revisit now knowing what the wines are, but that is not the point. We want it to be as objective as possible, so fair that we did it without knowing. There's a peacock just outside the door. So yeah, happy with the exercise. We definitely learned something. Hopefully you learned something as well. This is a very exciting class or style of wine. Blends from the Barossa, an amazing place for red wine and for different varietals. And those three varietals, the heroes of the Barossa, Grenache, Shiraz and Mourvedre, perform well when blended. So yeah, there's a bright future I think for this style of wine, and we are definitely championing blends, obviously with our Granada Frey range or elements. There might be another blend on the cards for the future. So yeah, pretty happy to see these this trend growing and people getting more and more excited about Grenache blends and blends of all sorts. So, okay, so this is it for today. Thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll do more of this in the future. We'll catch you on the next one, I guess. Bye.